Hello, my name is Simon Etherington, and I am the Chief Strategist and Implementer at the GC Index. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about why the GC Index is the language of business consulting. Now, the GC Index has come from a very specific place. First of all, we've said, how do organizations achieve anything? And fundamentally, they achieve things through these 5 ways. First of all, sometimes organizations need to think about what is possible. What do we need to invent? How can we be creative? And how can we transform and do things differently? Then we may need to think about how does that fit in? We need to make sense of those ideas. How does it fit into our bigger picture, into our purpose or why we're doing things? And also we need to structure it. How do we put it into a strategy or a roadmap or a plan? Then once we have our plans, we need to deliver them. We need to make them happen. We need to deliver them through our projects and through our programs. For certain things, we may want to focus on them more. It might be very important that we need them to deliver a particular business outcome. We may need to continuously improve them, to come up with new innovation. For example, our competitive advantage is probably something that we want to continue to improve and stay ahead of the game. And finally, we all need to work together. We need to reach consensus. We need to collaborate. We need to be inclusive in the broadest sense of inclusion. So how do we get the best out of everyone? Because if we do that, then we can achieve more as an organization. Now, if this is what organizations need to do to achieve anything, then if you take one away, that organization will fail. We need all of them. And indeed, on a daily basis, we're constantly going through this kind of cycle, maybe on a tens or hundreds or thousands of times a day, depending on how big the organization is. So what we've done is we've said, okay, why don't we label these 5 areas? And it took us 4.5 years to come up with a 59-question survey that determines where are individuals naturally inclined to make an impact in these 5 areas. And that results in a score of 1 to 10 in each of these 5 areas. Now that means that we've got 100,000 possibilities, so it's very individual. It also means that we are only measuring where people are naturally inclined or are energized and engaged in these spaces. We are not measuring their skill or how competent they are at them as well. But what this does mean is that we can now align any individual to the right culture, the right team, the right role, the right tasks, the right responsibilities, the right projects, even the right managers, where that individual will feel most engaged and energized, and their well-being will go up. And at the same time, they are more productive. Now, the biggest thing about the GC Index, though, is that there are 2 sides to it. The first side is the language itself. How do we use this language to have a conversation with anyone to say, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve in our mission statement, in our vision statement? What process do we need? How do we map that process out? What projects do we want to kick off? And what are the high-level project processes? What roles do we need in these business processes and projects? And how do we define those roles? Now, the GC Index has come up with quite a nifty tool called GC Translate to help us with the language of business consulting. Now, if I just come out of here a second and I go onto the website, I'm going onto a jobs site at the moment. It's Total Jobs. It's just a UK website. And I found a project manager role. Now, I'm just going to copy all of this role. So I've got all of the information that makes it up. And I'm going to go on to GC Translate, and I'm going to copy and paste that into GC Translate. Now, what GC Translate does, it automatically takes all of the words, all of the phrases, any sentences, etc., and translates them into what is the business impact that this content is talking about. Now, of course, in the context of a job description, it's defining what are we looking for this job in terms of how we want it to make a business impact. And in this particular example, we're saying that our project manager, we want them to have a high energy to be engaged in playmaking. So potentially to get the best out of the team, to make sure we engage with our stakeholders on the project and so on. And secondly, a high energy around implementer, maybe to achieve the project on time and on budget, may be a great implementation. But we also want the project manager to have a high energy around polisher, which is looking at the pursuit of excellence. So how do we deliver high standards across this project as well? However, we're not asking for this project to be highly transformational from a game changer perspective. We don't really need that in this project management role. And equally, we want this person to implement, but we don't necessarily want them to come up with strategic vision. Again, that's not what we need in the role. So if we have 10 candidates coming to interview for this role, we'll have 10 CVs. And now the 10 CV is an interesting construct. It's going to show us what skills people have and what experience they've had, but it's quite difficult to determine who should we bring to interview. With the GC Index, what we do is that we ask those people to take the GC Index, and we end up then with additional data, additional insight about those people. And what we now have is an understanding of which of these 10 people is going to be most engaged and energized by this particular role. Now, this is very important because we don't want to recruit someone into a role where they're not engaged and energized. It's not good for their well-being, and equally, it's not good for their productivity. So what we're looking for here then is if we need someone in this role to have a high energy around implementer, we probably wouldn't bring this person to interview. They've got a low energy around implementer. Now, I've used a recruitment example, but this is the language for business consulting, and we can use the GCNX data and language to make better decisions in all of these 20 areas. So any kind of consulting engagement that we want to do to help deliver services to our clients in any of these areas, whether it's from managing digital transformation projects through to helping clients with mergers, acquisitions, through to helping them develop their leaders, or looking at how do we organize ourselves to the desired culture that we need. And we end up then with 3 views of the organization. We have the first view, which is the individual view. This is looking at a particular person and understanding where are they going to make their biggest impact or their greatest impact in any organization. And there are 100,000 possibilities here, and each person ends up with a 27-page report that breaks it down into all of these areas. But then when we come to looking at teams, of course, we can see the individual people that make up that team, and we can then aggregate the team. So now we can understand, how is the team aligned to what we want it to achieve? When does this profile work well for the team? When doesn't it work well for the team? And how do we help this team make the best decisions for whatever they're trying to achieve? And finally, the GCNX is known as an organometric, which is a measure of how organizations achieve anything. And at this level, we can map the whole organization out. If this was 1,000 people, then at the top of the 1,000 people, we've got a description saying here that 41% of these 1,000 people have come out with their highest score as being playmaker, and 29% have had their highest score as polisher. So the business culture of this organization is that it is a playmaker polisher organization, looking to get the best out of people and looking to drive excellence in what they do. Now, we define business culture as how decisions get made in the organization. And this means that now we can start aligning our organization to what we're asking it to achieve. How are we explaining to our clients that we use this playmaker polisher culture to deliver great outcomes for them in terms of managing stakeholders brilliantly and potentially driving excellence in terms of the delivery that we're providing for them. But inside the business, this might be our sales team. And our sales team are coming out more as strategist, playmaker implementers. They need to understand why they're going out and engaging with their clients and what they're looking to sell. They may well do that through their key relationships from an engagement perspective, but they want to achieve their number. Equally, this could be our R&D team. And our R&D team are looking at coming up with inventions, new ideas, new product inventions, and so on, and then looking to deliver them through the team. This has all got quite big so far. So we've now got over 8,000 organizations around the world using this business consulting language to help them deliver what they want to achieve in their organizations. And primarily that's being delivered through over 400 GC partners. So consulting organizations, recruitment companies, training, education organizations, leadership coaches, and so on, who are using this data with their clients. And we have nearly 1,000 GCologists now. This is an individual that's been accredited in how to deliver these services. And our target audience is any organization in the world that has people in it. We have a young people index version of this as well, which is for young people aged 13 to 18, and that's going into schools and universities around the world. So we can profile anyone from middle school through into their higher education, into their first career, and then throughout their career to understand how do they best make their impact and how does it help them get the best out of their career as well. Now, one of the ways that we can use this in a consulting context is that we can start mapping this out, this data, to any kind of project at a high level that says, what do we need to achieve in each of these projects at any particular stage? And once we've mapped it out at a language level, then of course we can then start aligning people to it. Who are the people we need in the project roles? Who are the people we need in the project team to deliver this particular outcome? Or we can do the same for any business process. We can map out any process that we have, and then we can understand what does each role, what does each proclivity bring to that, and who do we need at any step to deliver the best out of that process. But finally, I just want to leave you with two things. The first one is every organization around the world does this kind of process. They look at what are their must-wins or their key business objectives or their goals, whatever they want to call them. And they'll all sit down and have a big meeting and say, right, what does good look like? What are we trying to achieve in each of these areas? And then we'll say, who are the people that we want to go out and lead these particular areas as well? Now, this particular organization is a pharmaceutical business, and they had 5 must-wins. So they've got enhanced regulatory governance and decision-making, improve operational effectiveness, building digital strategy, build a culture and engagement, and create a future workforce. Now, what they did is they went through this exercise without the GCNX. They weren't even aware of it when they did this process. But then when they were, and when they started rolling it out across their organization, they said, what if we were to go backwards and find out, did we make the best decisions? Did we align the right teams to the right achievements for what we want to deliver in the organization? And so what they ended up with then is quite an interesting output. If we take a look at the first objective that they had, which was regulatory governance and decision-making, on the right-hand side, that's the must-win objectives that they put down. And we put them through GC Translate. And when we do that, at the bottom in that black box, you'll see the must-win objectives profile. And those must-win objectives have come out as saying that we need some red implementer, some purple playmaker, and some blue strategist outcomes, to achieve what we want to achieve in these areas. Then at the top, we put together the team that they put together without knowing the GCNX. Now, actually, this team's not badly aligned. We've come up with an implementer strategist team. We may need to help this team to think about the playmaking elements, so make sure that we're engaging with the right people to get the delegation approach that we're looking for, etc. But underneath those high scores, it's almost certain that we're going to discover certain energies in Playmaker as well. We can just align the right people to that approach and help them with it. But this isn't too bad. But look at this one. This is their 4th profile, build culture and engagement. On the right-hand side are their must-win objectives, putting them through GC Translate. And they're coming out as high polisher, Playmaker, game changer requirements. And yet the team that they put together is a very heavily implementer-focused team. Now, again, it doesn't mean this team cannot achieve this outcome, but they're going to need some coaching and some guidance because their natural inclination is just to go off and try and achieve something, go and get something done, go and implement something. However, we need them to think about what does excellence look like, first of all, what are we looking to deliver, and how can we do that? And equally, how do we engage with all the key stakeholders and think about new possibilities, transformational possibilities, before we go out and implement this? And fundamentally, we probably, if we had all this data, probably wouldn't have put that team together to lead on a polisher, playmaker, game changer exercise. And finally, the last thing from a business consulting perspective is that we can use the language of the GCNX for literally anything. Here's an example, a scenario of an organization who has got a client, and their client has suddenly just stopped buying for them by 50%. It's a major impact on their business. And that may happen in lots of different organizations or any other business challenge. So what happens is that these three people are then getting together to have a chat about, we're responsible for it. What are we going to do? What are we going to make a difference? Now, when they do sit down, they're using the language of the GCNX to understand what they can do. First of all, from a strategic perspective, why is this happening? What data have we got to support it? From an implementing perspective, are we executing well? What does our customer satisfaction stats look like? From a playmaker perspective, what about our key stakeholder relationships? How are we engaged with them? Maybe a relationship has changed and that may be impacting what's going on. From a polishing perspective, are we delivering excellence to the client? What can we do to improve? And finally, from a game change perspective, what are we going to do differently to turn this around? What possibilities have we got? And then we're going to use the Ghostbuster call. Who are we going to call? And why don't we bring in to the equation Nicola? Because she's a high energy game changer. And the three of us, that's not really where our high energies are. So why don't we bring Nicola in to help us explore new possibilities and see how we can come up with different ways of doing things. So fundamentally, the GCNX is providing us with a language that we can explore with any kind of business objective, and to understand who we then should align to that objective to get the best results, either at an individual and a team level, and to help us and use it engage in any daily activity and business meeting.